what were the big questions that you set out to answer with this story?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as we've discussed, we've seen basically every tech stock getting crushed in the last couple of months on sort of nebulous fears that their businesses will be disrupted by new AI products from labs like OpenAI and Anthropic. A lot of that is hypothetical, but at the same time, we are seeing those companies increasingly compete for the same customers in a variety of arenas. So with this story, we really just wanted to map out all of the current products that each company has rolled out that do directly compete, both including AI agents, but also, the tools around AI agents that could theoretically change the ways that their customers interact with software.
Hmm. So the chart that you guys had in the story, which is a great one, you sort of segmented it into four categories: browser-based agent, computer use agent, agent builders, and then agent management dashboard. Let's leave out agent builders for the moment because I think that one is pretty intuitive. But what are the other three categories?
Yeah, so essentially, there's a couple things happening here. I mean, the main one is that foundation models from labs like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are getting better at using a computer in the way that a human would. And essentially, that means that, like, instead of the agent needing to connect to applications with an API or with, specific code, they can just kind of look at a computer screen in the way that a human does and, intuitively use any application. So that has sort of blown open, what is possible for AI agents to do with other tools, with other pieces of software. And as a result, we've also seen, all of these firms like ServiceNow, Salesforce, Microsoft start to build similar agents that rely typically on the models from OpenAI and Anthropic, that they say can, do even more white collar work, whether that's in areas like HR or IT, finance, or pretty much anything in the gamut of work that is done on a computer.
So let's zero in on the definitions here. Computer use agent, what is that?
So that's the type of AI agent that can essentially see your computer screen and, move the mouse around, click on things. And I think the breakthrough case that we've been hearing about here is Anthropic's Cowork, which also powers products like OpenClaw that have been going viral. And essentially, people are, now directing these products to do things like organize all of their files, move data from an Excel spreadsheet into a different format, uh, do online shopping for them, book reservations. I think a lot of the enterprise use cases are still a little bit more hypothetical, and Anthropic has said that that type of tool is only available in a preview. But at the same time, we are seeing all of these firms kind of race to convince customers to use their own versions of these computer using agents.
Okay, so that's computer use agent, and then a browser-based agent is sort of like a computer use agent, but only within the browser, essentially. So it can only take actions within the tabs that you have open, I guess, and maybe it has the side panel type of thing.
That's right, and it's sort of a stepping stone to computer use agents. I think
Okay,
it's also a little bit, more constrained and not going to, change any code on your machine and not gonna reorganize your files, so it might be a little bit easier for enterprises to adopt something like that.
right, right, and then agent management dashboard, that obviously makes sense. So you have to figure out how many tools you have deployed and stuff like that. One broad question I had for you, Aaron, with all this is: do you think that it's likely that one or two companies win out in each of these categories, or is it sort of likely that these companies persist with having uh, products that essentially replicate what their rivals are doing?
So I think really what the battle that we're seeing now is over basically owning the interface that human employees at a company will use to interact with software. And what companies like OpenAI, are now putting forward is they're saying we are going to own this dashboard where you will, open up ChatGPT and direct all of your different AI agents to carry out tasks in, applications like Salesforce, Jira, ServiceNow. You won't actually need to open those apps. We'll just have our AI agents do it for you. So that doesn't mean that all of those other application providers would necessarily lose all of their revenue, but what they would lose is the relationships with customers, and essentially OpenAI in that vision would become the central place that every business uses or that human employees use to interact with other applications. And so that's why we're now seeing, Salesforce and ServiceNow and Microsoft all say that actually we are the best place to have this agent dashboard. And we want to sort of own the layer where you're managing and orchestrating all these agents. And I think that's really where we've seen, a lot of this competition start to ramp up.
Great. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Aaron Holmes, our Microsoft reporter that also covers all things enterprise software here at The Information.